Did President Obama's open mic remarks to Russian President Dmitry Medvedev constitute impeachable treason, or is he just one practical politician talking with another? I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, joined now by Stephen Green and Bill Whittle. Well, men, Dmitry Medvedev is on his way out of the presidency, and Barack Obama seems to think he's guaranteed a second term in the White House. The two chief executives shared a private moment this week as Obama asked Medvedev to get a message to incoming Russian President Vladimir Putin. Obama first said, quote, "On all these issues, but particularly missile defense, this can be solved, but it's important for him," meaning Putin, "to give me space." Then came this.
My last space for you. Yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and understand what.
After my election, I have more flexibility, our president said. Well, Article 3, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution defines treason as adhering to our enemies, giving them aid and comfort. Article 2, Section 4 says treason is cause for impeachment. The missile defense system, by the way, they're talking about, protects our allies in Europe and Israel against rogue state launches from, let's say, hypothetically, Iran. Stephen Green, in this open mic video clip, what does it look like President Obama is really saying?
Yeah, I'm going to let Bill do the outrage on this. I'm going to try and take the cooler angle here if I can. Diplomats say these things to each other all the time. But presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, they do not. And there's a reason for that. Because partisan politics is supposed to stop at the water's edge. Overseas, the president represents all of us, not just his party. And so the diplomats remind each other when it's time to negotiate and when it's time to show patience. But this president, he cannot help himself. He's his own best speechwriter, his own best policy wonk. He's his own best chief of staff. Now he's his own best secretary of state. In fact, he's an ego in a suit. And the very best that can come out of this is a terribly unpresidential moment. And the worst that can come out of this, is exactly what you said, and that is treason. Sorry I didn't keep my cool.
Well, Bill Whittle, frankly, is my mention of treason and impeachment just sensationalism, or is it worth exploring what our commander-in-chief is telling the leader of another nuclear superpower when he thinks no one will hear?
I'm going to do my very best to be calm about this, because if I don't, I'm going to lose my mind. Let me tell you what the real outrage is here. When I first heard this, let's just back up. Benedict Arnold is well known as the great American traitor because Benedict Arnold was ready to sell out secrets of the American defense system in order for personal political gain. What we saw here was the President of the United States negotiating with a representative of our archenemy. Every American soldier who's been killed in the last 50, 60 years has died at the hands of AK-47s and Soviet weaponry. They're supplying arms to Iran, they're supplying nuclear materials to Iran, they're helping Syria, so on. And so we know who the Russians are. The President of the United States said to the Russian president, if you will not do anything that will embarrass me, if you will give me space, if you will just basically be quiet until after the election, when all these pesky Republican, when I say Republican, I mean the constraints of a republic, are finished, then I'll have the freedom to give away the farm, which is exactly what he said. When I saw this, I was outraged, and then I was filled with a genuine sadness that I saw such a thing. But Scotty, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The story is not the president selling out this country to our enemy on camera. The story is that everybody sees it, everybody knows what it is, and it's not a news story. It's just an open mic. It's a flub. So, that's what happens when a mic is on. It's a weekend news dump. There's not going to be any consequences. The entire definition of treason is very clear, but there is no treason anymore. Nobody gives a damn. There's no Constitution anymore. There's no constraints anymore. There's no First Amendment. There's no Fifth Amendment. It's all gone, and we do nothing. We do nothing. Nothing.
Dmitry, Vladimir, and Barack on one side of the negotiating table. Who's on the other side? Stephen Green, the White House says, move along now, nothing to see here. It's just two politicians acknowledging the obvious, that nothing gets done in an election year. I mean, did Matt Drudge really need a 72-point headline for this, or are we just knee-jerk Obama haters?
Apparently he needed the big headline because of what Bill was saying, that nobody notices otherwise. And when they notice, they don't care. But this is exactly what Charles Krauthammer warned us about 2 years ago. He wrote that after Obamacare passed, Obama was done for his first term legislatively. There was nothing more he could wrangle out of Congress, especially after the Tea Party election that fall. So Obama is saving up his capital for his second term, where he'll be totally free of election worries, and he can complete the socialization, the wind farmization, the Chevy voltization, the too big to failization of this once great country. And who knows what he wants to give away to the Russians, the Chinese or the Iranians. Scott, it shakes me down to my soul.
Well, Bill, President Obama has already publicly declared he wants a world without nukes and that he's willing to lead in decommissioning American warheads. When our allies listen to this recording, this open mic episode, will they feel comforted that Obama and Putin may find common ground, albeit next year, on the provocative issue of missile defense?
This is a 20-minute response, which I can't do, needless to say. The Poles were sold out by the British and by the French in World War II. They have been sold out by the Americans now. They took an enormous risk, putting a missile defense system to protect all of Europe. They live under the shadow of these evil, rotten people, these Russian thugs. And they, as always, the Poles have been brave, honest, steadfast, stalwart allies. They're probably the bravest people in the world. They took an enormous risk to get this missile defense system in there. And Barack Obama is going to sell out that entire country and the security of this country so that he can get re-elected. And the real threat in what we saw here, putting aside the national security implications, is this. President Obama admits to this guy, too. He'll never admit it to the American people, but he'll admit it to his pal, the president of Russia, that all I have to do is just get past my last election, and then I'll have a lot more flexibility, which really means a lot more flexibility to do whatever I damn well please. And I'll just close this by saying this. If you're one of these people that think Mitt Romney is not conservative enough for you, and you're going to sit this election out, 30 million conservatives didn't vote this last election. If this guy gets reelected, we are going to deserve every single thing that's going to happen to us.
Well, I want President Obama to have cordial relations with Russian leaders, and I want them to negotiate issues of mutual concern in good faith. And I expect some things must be said in private that would sound strange if taken out of context. But our president is whispering comfort in the ears of a regime that helped Iran develop its nuclear program. He's suggesting we might soften our allies' defenses against Iranian missiles. He's confiding in them while concealing from us. And all of this just days after he told Israel, "We've got your back." Who could blame Israel and our European allies for wondering what's really happening behind their backs? And who could blame American voters for wondering if the president trusts a former KGB agent more than he trusts us? For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, and the entire Trifecta crew at PJTV, I'm Scott Ott.